Mary Catalanato is not here.
No, and Roseanne.
And
Roseanne.
Roseanne, okay.
All right. Meeting is called to order. And a quick reminder that this is an open meeting. And that is our apology to people that expected us to be on at 1:30, but we had a little tactical problem, and so we couldn't get on until 2 o'clock today. And we apologize for that. So
We used the time well.
we did use the time well. We celebrated the holidays and being together and just enjoyed having a social time together, so. All right, we have guests. You're all set with the guests? You know everyone, Bob?
I'm all set, you go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not going to, we all know each other, I think, so we don't need to get into that. We have the friends here, and we have Joe Knox here, who is our liaison to the Board of Selectmen, and we are grateful that he does come to our meetings, so. Are there any announcements to be made? Pam, could you just review the snow stormed last night and this morning? Reminded me that there's always confusion around when things are closed at the COA and when they're not. So can you review that for everyone?
Yes. So the diner follows the school schedule. So if the schools are closed, the diner's closed. And that's because Minuteman Senior Services operates the diner, and that's their choice, that they follow the school closures. Obviously, if the schools are closed for the summer or vacation, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about if they're closed for a weather emergency. COA, however, is a town department, and we only close if this building is closed. We rarely close. If you want to know if we're open, if there's any doubt about whether we're open or not, you can call our office, 978-540-2470, and if we are going to be closed, the voicemail message will reflect that. Now, having said that, the van service is a third piece of this, and there are times when our office is open, but the roads are too hazardous for us to want to put the vans on the road. So today, for example, we had a 2-hour delay on putting the vans out because right at the time that we would have normally been on the road, the roads were hazardous. So that may be a separate entity. Anyone who has a booked ride, if there's a change, we call you, which is why we ask for people's numbers. I should also mention that Christmas and New Year's both fall on Sundays, and by state law, that's observed on the Monday. So December 26th, Monday, December 26th is the day that we will be closed for Christmas holiday, and Monday, January 2nd is the day we'll be closed in observance of New Year's. I had a couple other announcements I wanted to make. I don't know how many of you received the notice that on December 17th, the Friends of the Library are having their craft sale. So you may be interested in that. And the other thing I wanted to announce is something that just came up last week. The Alumni Field Maintenance Group, a group of citizens here in town that are connected with the project to renovate Alumni Field, approached us and wanted to raise money for us for transportation. And they set up a GoFundMe campaign online. And this morning they notified me that they had collected over $3,200 in donations.
Nice.
They also have a matching donation from a foundation of $2,500, and they're going to be presenting that to us to go into our transportation fund. The transportation fund is what we use when we run over the $68,000 that MART gives us. So MART has allotted us that money. For the last 2 years, we've spent all of it and more, and we've had to pull it out of our van fund and a little bit out of our formula grant money. But there's not enough in the formula grant to cover all the overage. And of course, pulling down the van fund means less money for tires and repair and maintenance. There were 72 donors that contributed to that $3,200, which that's wonderful. that many people in Littleton were able to really reach out and give us some money.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
How much?
It really is.
Giving us
I can give you the exact figure later, but it's a little over $3,200.
over 3,200.
And just to put it in perspective, in terms of our needs around transportation, we drove 3,000 miles last month
Wow.
between the two vans. We had almost 6,000 rides last year that we gave. We do close to 500 rides every single month. And that's a lot of wear and tear on the equipment. The MART provides us with one van, and they do the maintenance on that. But our other van, we bought it out of donations from people, and we have to maintain it out of donations from people. So it's really, really important to have this kind of funding.
And even then, it's still hard to keep up with the need, I think, isn't it?
You know, we have more need, and I'm taking this senior transportation class at UMass. You know, we aren't even beginning to touch things like evenings and weekends, people who no longer drive that would like to be able to attend church events or social events. We just do the basics 5 days a week. Having said that, I mean, we're in better shape than some towns that have to rely totally on volunteers, for example. But there's more that we could do.
I think one of the interesting statistics that you had mentioned was that the town of Boxborough does 500 rides a year, and we do 500 a month. And it's pretty amazing.
But transportation is a real key piece for independence. And for people to successfully age in place or stay in their homes, if they can no longer drive, there are no other alternatives in Littleton. There's no taxi, there's no bus service. And a lot of people think that their family members will drive them around. But if you look realistically at today's families, people are working. Everyone in the home is out during the day. Kids are in school, in college. Or in many cases, families aren't even in the same town with the senior.
And just example, I think about the neighborhood supper, and I know there are some people that don't drive, and actually one of our board members gives a ride to somebody from my church who doesn't drive and can't get here otherwise.
Right.
And so there's many, you know, that would be another thing that people, I'm sure, would attend if they had a ride, but it's at 5:30 at night. So,
At the master plan, the subcommittee on transportation was also talking about the non-9 to 5 hours and the needs that are occurring throughout the town and the need of scheduled transportation of some kind. So
yeah.
it's becoming a larger concern.
Well,
And one way to fill that gap is with volunteer drivers, but to successfully run a real volunteer driver program that is, that reduces the risk by providing training and carefully screening people, requires time and energy. And I had asked the selectmen last week when I met with them to seriously consider my request for an additional outreach person, and I'll be bringing that up again in January when I meet with the FinCom and with BOS. You know, those are great programs, but they require energy and time and a lot of phone calling.
Is there an insurance problem with volunteers?
There's no insurance issue because a volunteer who's acting under the direction of Tina or myself is covered under the umbrella policy, which is why the Meals on Wheels drivers
Okay.
are all covered. There's no issues there.
well, thank you, Alumni Field Maintenance Group.
Yes.
This is wonderful, wonderful. So, we do thank you. Any other announcements? That's exciting. So,
If I could just mention that same group, that's a great working group. And if you go to that Youth Fund page, some of the comments that people put down after they made their donation was so thoughtful and thanking and what the COA has done, you know, for everybody. So it's a nice sense of community.
Right.
You know, some people say, oh, Littleton's not the town it used to be. There's still a great nucleus of people who care about other people. And this showed 72 people.
amazing, amazing. Right.
And that's 72 people in a very short period of time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
I think it was 8 days.
I mean,
Wow.
Marcia, I also want to mention the fact that it's very, very good seeing younger people find out about us and want to be involved. I mean, I think that maybe I started when I was early 50s, and they're not there yet, and they're thinking of helping the seniors, and so I'm so appreciative and happy that
Right.
they are seeing, you know, well, they're seeing their future maybe too, but, and they also suggested helping the Friends, and so I'm giving them a lot of kudos for, you know, being involved with us. I think that's great.
It is great, so. And I'm sorry to say that maybe perhaps some of our audience was unable to hear those comments, but the speakers didn't come to the table, but overall, it was just praising everyone who has been involved in this whole process, so. And we're so grateful and appreciative of your wish to be involved, so, if I can sum it up that way. Okay, let's move on, if we can, then no other announcements. Are we set there? Okay. Can I have a vote to accept the minutes of the November 21st meeting?
So moved.
Do we have any discussion, I'm sorry, about the minutes? I should have said that first, and I apologize.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second, Mary Pickett? Is seconding Bob? Did you get that?
I
Okay.
don't get who does it, they just,
Oh, you just put it down, okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? None. Unanimous. Thank you. Now, Barbara, please join us at the microphone so that people can hear you better.
I'm good and loud anyway, so.
No, you project.
Oh, that sounds so much better. I like that. I just want to say that the Friends are so happy at the turnout for, you know, our Christmas party. It was great fun, and we really, really enjoy seeing everybody come, and hope even more will come next time. But we had a very good crowd, and everybody seemed to have a good time. So next for the calendar, as far as party luncheons are concerned, on January 6th, we're going to have a New Year's Eve party. I can't tell you, well, it isn't New Year's Eve, it's a New Year's party, but I can't tell you what we're having for food yet. We're still working on all the details for the party. And it will be from 1 to 3 on January 6th in the multipurpose room. And it's free. It's going to be a Mardi Gras. That we know, that much. And I'm going to throw in that February 17th, we're going to have a Valentine's party. I kind of want you to look ahead and put these things on your calendar so that you remember to come. And having said all that, I want to mention that
February.
February 17th. And I do want to mention that party luncheons aren't the only things that the Friends do. I mean, it looks like that, but it's not true. We do work hard at saving our money from the thrift shop and any donations to use for things that, you know, requests that we feel we can fill. So don't think of us as a party people only,
Oh, yeah.
although that's okay.
Excuse me, February 17th, what kind of a luncheon?
This is a Valentine's Day
Valentine,
party,
I'm sorry, anyway.
and it'll be at noon in the multipurpose room, again. So, and I'm not sure about food yet. But anyway, so do, you know that this is the fun thing we like to do, but we also like to help in other ways, and we do. So,
And the process for that is that Pamela comes to you or Tina comes to you with requests.
we request a letter stating what they would like, and then we talk about it and vote on it one way or the other.
Okay,
I won't say we always say yes, but we try.
okay.
And we did say yes to the counters that are in the diner.
Right.
So, anyway, that's just one of the things, but,
Well, it's good. I think it's good for the public to hear what it is that you support when you're requested, you know.
Well, mostly, when Tina has a request for help for someone, we want to, we want to do that.
Okay.
And this is coming into a new year, so there'll be new things. But if they feel is needed, and if they send us a letter, then we consider.
Well, and also, I think for people to understand the connection, I think there's still confusion about the connection between the COA and the Friends.
Right.
But an example you might, just occurred to me, you might want to explain is like, for example, the COA runs the Loving Stitches knitting group, and they knit all year, and then the Friends has a table at the town fair, and what did they just make this past year as a result? What you made on that table, primarily as a result of the Loving Stitches group
Oh, yeah.
in the COA.
Okay.
But the COA cannot fundraise,
No,
but the Friends can.
Yeah.
And so all of the work of the people that are in that group, is utilized in a
Right.
very effective manner. And
True.
And they make good money. They made a lot of money at the town fair.
Right. The Friends, actually, we have our own account, and that's where, when a request is made from Pamela or Tina, we can give them a check right then and there. Other than that, if you want money for the COA, you cannot fundraise, so the money has to go into the town account.
Right.
And then go there for the money. You go there for the money to get a check. So.
We
there are
cannot, we cannot solicit, but
No.
if someone gives
Right.
us an unsolicited donation like this GoFundMe campaign,
Right.
we can certainly accept
Right.
money from town people. They just have to make out a check to the Council on Aging.
Yeah, as long as it goes into the town account.
Yeah.
And a certain account that you have,
That I have gone to the selectmen and I've
Right.
arranged. And we have the TRED fund, for example, for tax relief. We have the transportation fund, and there's an energy assistance fund set up. And
Right.
I regularly receive
so is this
gifts.
why, well, never mind, I'll talk about that another time. Anyway,
The Friends do a great job, and they do, you do a lot.
Well,
That is not perhaps known.
yeah,
That's the
iterate
answer.
what you donated to the diner. I mean, you did the
well,
counters and,
the counters that were put into the diner were purchased by the Friends. It cost, I guess I can tell you, $5,000, and so it was, because we're also interested, if we had a senior center, or we had more rooms, the Friends money that we've been saving on the side of what we have here would go towards renovating whatever we get, or helping to furnish.
but
a new place.
you are dealing with immediate needs
Yes,
for
this is another
seniors.
account that we have. We're saving that pipe dream.
Right, right.
So, but
But while still
this money
attending
is
to the immediate needs.
Yes, this money is to use whenever needed. But anyway, other than that, just remember to put those dates on your calendar.
Yes.
And we hope to see everybody there.
No, we're very,
I think
very,
Nancy wants to be recognized.
right, she's been raising her hand over there, but is there,
Jumping up and down and waving and,
Uh-oh,
Date Barbara gave you is not correct.
oh,
uh-oh.
Okay?
This is what I have on my little sheet here. What date? Which one?
January 6th.
That's not this year, no,
It's not this year.
Am I going to have to change my
That was
minutes?
done last April.
yes.
But this is 2016. Oh. Okay, give me the
2000s.
dates. Sorry about
Which
that.
one are you talking about?
When you get to be my age, forget it.
Which one?
January.
January.
it'll be 2017 in January.
Forget about that. Go ahead, sit and tell them what the dates are. I have a very good vice president.
Yes, she does.
And she's so self-deprecating.
Have to be
Shy.
nice to her.
Shy.
And I'm younger by 8 months. All right, January, the Mardi Gras is January 18th.
18.
We were
Yeah, I got
really
that.
off with the 6th.
Say it a few times so the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
out there.
January 18th.
Valentine's Day is February 15th.
Oh, well, that's not too far off.
And it is on the last minute you got from us. We didn't meet last month, we didn't have a
Right.
quorum, but it is on the minute you got before
Right,
that.
I saw the list.
Just so that you'll know, because when we meet again, this will be on our new minutes, the spaghetti luncheon with the high school is going to be April 6th.
It's when?
April 6th.
What's this now?
The high school spaghetti luncheon for seniors. Dorothy Malone and I have been working on it, and it's all set. It's at 1 o'clock.
April 6th.
And details, of course, will follow.
And Nancy, can you give me information when you have these things that are not on your original schedule, because we're also booking things into May and June now?
Okay, the town calendar is all set with our things.
So if I go to what, the high school or something, I'll find
No,
the
high
spaghetti
school-
lunch?
The high school isn't on our town calendar,
Yeah.
the multi-purpose room.
So the spaghetti lunch?
It's at the high school.
Right, so where would I find that on the calendar?
I don't know which calendar you would look at, the school calendar?
No,
It'd be so much easier if you just tell me.
when you get something booked like that, that wouldn't show on the calendar for the multipurpose room, let Pam know.
Oh, okay.
She'd just like to be informed so she can put it on our spread.
Right, so I don't
Means you
double
want
book
the-
us with something
April
else.
6th.
Communications?
Right,
April
right.
6th.
Constant effort in that direction, right?
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. And thank you again, friends. We're very fortunate, because many towns do not have such a great friends group. That's very true.
So since January 6th has now become available, I'd like to mention that on that morning of January 6th, that's when we'll be doing our annual emergency preparedness session with the fire department and the police department. Everyone's welcome to come to that. Please call and let us know you're coming so that we can know how many
Wait a
people to
minute.
plan for. So January 6th.
Back on announcements, all right. When is it?
January 6th, Wednesday, January 6th at 10:30. And as always, the scenario is how to prepare for a power outage. Because we could have a power outage from an ice storm, a snowstorm, tornado, or just a flood,
Earthquake.
earthquake.
All right. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to old business. And the first item on the agenda is the COA Board-sponsored special Thursday lunch, which has been set up for this Thursday, the 15th of December, in the diner. Gail is on board with it and has suggested to me that we plan for 30 people. That's what they usually plan for on the Thursday luncheons. So I will be finalizing plans with her as to how many pizza, we're providing pizza and salad for the lunch. So I will meet with her and finalize how many pizzas and et cetera.
You need money.
And yes.
We as a board are donating to provide this.
You
If
missed
you
that part,
choose to, if you choose to, it's not a
We as a
mandatory
board are
thing.
providing,
But if you choose to, if everyone contributes $10, and many of you already have given me the money, then we can pay for the special luncheon, which is always something that people enjoy, I think, every week. And there are different people that provide those lunches, and I suggested that we do it, if you chose to participate, and help out in that way, that's all. So it will be this Thursday, and it is pizza and salad. So come on down to the senior diner for lunch this Thursday. Any questions about that? I'll give you a report at the next meeting about everything, how it went, and, okay? Except Susan will have to watch TV in Florida to be able to get that report,
Oh, I'll be so sad.
I'm sure. All right, any questions about that? No. Okay. And if you can have a preference as to the type of pizza that's ordered, see me after the meeting, so that I can put a good word in for you. All right, moving on to the Housing Subcommittee. And I'd like to preface this by saying that, just before we get into the discussion, that it's really important that we as a group work with the Housing Subcommittee to convey our feelings about some types of housing that we have a vision for seniors in town. very important. There is a meeting, a very significant meeting in January. We will not meet again before then, and so I ask that you really work with them today. We need to be brief and succinct, and I bet you all have a vision of what you think senior housing should look like here in this town. So, I'm going to turn it over to them. They're going to report on the November 21st Planning Board meeting and discuss the priorities for Littleton, but we need to really give them some information today. So,
I'll speak on behalf of the Housing Committee meeting.
thank you.
Okay. It was a meeting held jointly with the Littleton Planning Board. All of the subcommittee was there, as well as a few other housing, Littleton board members. Nancy Levine and Ellen were there from the Friends. There were the Housing Board and guests Judy Barrett and Amanda Berman. There were also some regular senior members there, just from the housing, and senior members in town from private housing. Amanda and Judy gave a quite long presentation on various descriptions of housing, from private housing to assisted living to nursing home to skilled, to a description of any kind of housing. I'm not sure from comments made at the meeting that this is what was anticipated at the meeting from everybody who attended the meeting. From my perspective and a few other people, it was a presentation that was educational to some people because you got to learn what each housing description was about. What was independent housing? What was adult active? What was assisted living? What was skilled? What was that? What was this? But again, that's not what everybody anticipated. I think some people thought they were going to get to speak and say, this is what we want, this is what we need, but that's not really what happened. As a result of the presentation, the Housing Committee was able to digest what all of these housing descriptions meant, and for us, what we didn't want. So what we want to come back to the board is and say, do we as a board know what we want for housing for seniors in Littleton? We have Shattuck Street, just up a couple of blocks from here. That's primarily apartment housing. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. There are some family apartments in the back there that are 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, from what I understand. We have Pondside down the road. It's not all public housing. There's a few units down there that get subsidized housing, from what I understand. We have down on Route 2A near Acton, the new building. It's little houses, and there's a
Big
tall
prices.
apartment building down there also. We have some housing off of White Street that are 2-story houses.
And that's
No.
private though, right?
They're private.
But that's over 55.
But what this woman, Judy and Amanda, showed us were all kinds of different housing that if you're driving through a particular town, you would say, oh, there's a housing development, there's a housing development, there's a housing development. What are we, this board sitting around this table, what would we envision for our seniors? Would we envision the concept of just a Shattuck Street? The concept of what's down on 2A?
I'd like to
That would
see a Carl
be, that would be
Willard.
private as well as have apartments or the houses available for those affordable. We talked about that at our subcommittee housing last week. Bob made the comment, well, we have all these apartments in Acton, we could just build apartment buildings. the housing on White Street, which is not public, is 2 floors.
Good.
Is 2 floors really what senior citizens want? As we age, do we want to go up and down stairs? Good point, Jean. So this is something that I think we need to discuss today. What are we actually looking for in senior housing? Because the meeting that's going to be held with the planning board in January, we need to be able to say to them, this is really what we think we're interested in. Do we want apartment buildings, 2 floor, 3 floor, 4 floors? Do we want 1 level? Do we want apartments and housing so people who have their own homes can downsize to our little house? And then when they can't manage the house, do we want to have an apartment complex within the housing unit that they can go to an apartment? It's very thought-provoking.
It is. Susan?
And I don't think we've actually given thought to it. But
Okay.
it's time that we
Ready.
need to think about it.
Susan's ready?
Yes.
I've always liked the concept, like at Carlton Willard, or what they're doing in Lincoln. I know Lincoln is too expensive for most of Littleton, but it's a progressive. You can start in a cottage, or you can start in an apartment that's 1 floor. And as your needs change, you can move on to assisted living, from independent living, and from assisted living on to a SNF unit, if that's what you need, a skilled nursing. Something like that really looks at the whole progression that we're all facing, so that you have an opportunity to stay in your community no matter what or how your situation changes. I agree with you that when they built Pine Tree Park, it was the best that they could do, but it is multi-story, and 1 floor is what seniors need and want. Whether it's a 1-floor apartment in a building that has elevators, or a 1-floor home. I mean, that's what I want. I want to downsize to something 1 floor.
Oh, I thought she was done.
No, she's gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Do
I'm finished,
you,
right?
do you have more to report to the board?
No, I wanted to start, the only other thing I wanted to add to the conversation was, we don't want to, I don't think we want to age restrict it. I think we want to age target so that we can draw in younger people who are probably in their 50s and 60s and who will stay there. Because if we age restrict it to 70s or 80s, it's not going to be successful.
Contractors aren't willing to invest in that.
No.
Because it's too
And
difficult to
the
resell.
second thing to think about is that this is not going to happen in 10 years.
Now, or tomorrow.
It's not going to happen in our lifetime.
You want to
I
mention
mean, you
the
know.
meeting of the planning board before we get into a discussion?
She did. She did mention that already.
I didn't get it, okay. The next
You
meeting-
mentioned the January 6th meeting with the planning board.
Yes, I said we have a
No,
planning.
not that one, the one that's coming up that they want us to,
Yes, in January.
January
oh,
6th.
January 6th,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And that, we've been invited to attend that meeting, so this board needs to figure out what we
we
want the subcommittee to speak
We need to
on our
take,
behalf.
we need to get on board with some general consensus so that when we go to this planning board meeting in January, what do we want to be able to say we think we want?
And I
But
would-
again, it's probably not going to happen within, we're planning the future, and it's not my future.
But I would welcome comments too from our guests. If you have thoughts about this, speak up.
I was going
Joe,
to
Joe
ask.
would like to speak.
I was going to ask about this at the Littleton Housing meeting, but it was canceled the other night.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
I said I was going to ask the Littleton Housing Authority at their meeting the other night, but it was canceled.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, any input you might have would also be welcome.
And Mr. Joe Knox has something to say, I think?
As far as housing goes, those ideas are good, but we want to make sure that you expand too in different types of housing. And you talk, not in your lifetime, you could have something happen in your lifetime that's a little bit simpler if the town allowed duplexes. And we have in-law apartments, but the in-law apartments are limited to family or someone that you're responsible for. But right now, if we could allow duplexes in town, you could have, it'd be a lot more affordable for seniors to live in a small duplex that's attached to another house.
Right.
Right now, our zoning doesn't allow it, but that's something that can happen in our lifetime as we plan for other things.
And the zoning,
I'm sorry, aren't the houses off White Street duplexes, the privately owned over 55 that Fields built?
Yeah, that was a special permit that they
Oh.
went and got, but if I have an in-law apartment, say that my dog's living there. If she wasn't there, then I couldn't
Do
rent it out to
anything, yes.
anyone that might want to come in and stay in town, be part of Littleton, but I can afford to pay a lot less than a mortgage, so that's something that can happen right away.
And
Right.
would it be fair to say, Joe, that what you're talking about is making some bylaw changes, perhaps even zoning changes, but things that would allow developers to do these things without having to go through a special permitting process,
Yes.
to make it easier for these kinds of things to be done?
Exactly, if the zoning change is something that could happen.
Right.
The other parts you talk about are fantastic, but they take more planning, take someone who wants to invest money. It's not a complete answer to everything, but it's a.
But it is, yeah.
It's a great
See-
idea to get people live and only rent for $1,000, I don't even know what the cost would be.
I can visualize a community, like the White Street communities per se, but not two-story.
Right.
One story, smaller units, and maybe a duplex type of community, for seniors. To me, that's something that's feasible if, we can get the zoning things, some of the zoning things changed, which would allow it. But to me, I can see that. Are you familiar with Robbins Park there in Acton on Route
Yes.
27? I would not like to see something like that in Littleton, quite frankly. I just wouldn't like it. So it's just too big and too foreboding and too overwhelming. But the smaller
It's
type,
wonderfully run.
it is, I'm sure it is wonderfully run, and I know some people that, are there. But anyway, I can visualize something like that, the White Street, community per se, where when you go drive by and you look in there, but one level.
Yeah.
I could see something like that as a starting point to be able to keep seniors in town.
Actually, when Susan mentioned about that complex, my cousin lived in a complex in Worcester, and they bought their own, they were duplex cottages, kind of, and they bought their own. It belonged to them, as long as they lived there. And they had conveniences, the things were provided, plowing and handyman and all that business was taken care of. But they also, on the same big complex, had a nursing home and assisted living and a nursing home, further away, but part of the same deal. And it just seemed to make sense to me.
Is this the Baptist place done by is this the Baptist, it's done by the Baptist and something?
I can't hear you, but
Is this the one that the Baptist and the other church have, it's almost next to the
We need
country
that
club?
here.
no, I don't think so. I don't think it was associated
They
with,
have one too, which is the same
We
thing.
had
You have
one up
individual
right.
houses, you have apartments, you have a section which is for people who now need
Yeah.
assisted care, and right down to hospitalization.
yeah,
It is expensive,
yeah.
and
Well, I think they have to put so much money ahead of time into a fund, and then,
at the Masonic Home in Charlton, what you do is you sell your house, give them the proceeds of the house, give them your social security, and they then provide you with housing in an apartment on a big complex which has all of these, and you're there for life, and at the time that you go, a certain portion of it is given back to your dependents.
survivors.
And then
Yeah.
it,
You're giving up a significant amount of
Right.
your income.
that's right.
And we got into a discussion on this a couple of times, And one of the things that, with, like the place in Lincoln is that nobody's buying there. The Masons started that, but they got out of it. The big one on the corner.
Right.
Shirley's Corner. What's the name of it? The one where they put in
Crosby
the
Corner.
overpass. That was originally Masonic, but it is so expensive, and people are
is.
not buying into it because they're afraid they can't sell it when they want to move out of it.
Right.
Because they're buying it individually. So you're getting into that kind of thing. And I believe the planning lady from the master plan said the same thing, that they are finding that this is being used less and less. Not the whole concept thing, but on the level of the $1 million
Yeah, that,
that it cost a little Lincoln.
but Carlton Willard has been around forever, and it's that same concept. And out in San Diego, there's this thing called Frederica Manor, which is that same concept.
There's one in Pennsylvania that's absolutely wonderful and has
Yeah.
an integration with the local Quaker school next door, and they do intergenerational things with them. But they're few and far between, and they are also not expensive. The people I knew living, though, was a past pharmacist from Maine who had lots of money. And because I said to my wife at the time we visited them that I'd love to go there. She said, I don't think so.
But the thing in Littleton is to keep in mind that we need to keep it in a certain price range, and they don't have to be $1 million Lincoln kinds of things.
Oh, so yeah, when you look at our needs assessment report,
Right.
what was the income
Oh,
of the majority of our people who are aging was not that high.
no,
No, we're not looking, the problem is we're not looking for people to supply for extremely well-to-do people. What we need to do is we need to find answers for those both who don't need subsidized housing.
Right.
But need to move to smaller places, and those who need subsidized housing. Now, that's two different things.
They
And
are.
there is I have 2 or 3 friends who have had big houses who needed to move to smaller one-story houses in Littleton in order to stay in Littleton, and have spent as much as 3 years trying to find anything and can't find a thing because we don't have anything. Now, it's not a matter of they're having to have a subsidized housing, it's a matter of they're having to have some kind of housing with at least a reasonable rent.
Yeah.
Now, what's reasonable, they're saying that the stuff down at the 40B is not reasonable, it's $1,700 to $2,100.
and the houses are selling down there for $400,000 to $500,000 down at the
Some of
village.
them.
Yeah,
That's not what not the original ones they built, but you're right, the bigger ones they're doing now. It's very difficult. It's not an easy thing. I went to listened to the master plan, to 4 or 5 groups where they were talking about zoning changes and housing and what people wanted, and it's a very complex situation. But I also know that I have a friend who had a wife who became ill, and he needed to get her into a one-room house, and she went to Vermont to stay with her daughter because there was nothing he could do about it. And he's been living here by himself in their 2-story house, which is not big, but she just could not make stairs. I have another friend who's looking, because his wife is now in Littleton.
Littleton
the,
House.
Not rehabilitation, but
Life care.
Life care.
and he's looking for anything, where he can get a small apartment for himself, because she's gonna be there for the rest of her life, and he knows it. And they're in their 90s. And it's not, the waiting list, I don't know whether Gino's numbers are correct, but Gino, at the master plan, the first thing he said, there are 399 people on the waiting list. I don't know whether that's true or not, but one of the problems is that the waiting lists do not give preference to Littleton residents. That was something that I was surprised at. And when the 40B down on the edge of Acton, in Littleton, more people came, a lot of seniors and a lot of people with needs came into those apartments, but they weren't from Littleton. So we've now added to our senior population with people who weren't here before, and Gina's carrying the brunt of this, because they're coming to her and saying, help us, and, she's got to find aid for all of these people who are moving into this 40B complex. That's not good, but it's a reality.
Is that a state law? Is that a state law that any town can go to a low income?
Some people have said that in some of them it is by law that you cannot discriminate. We were talking with the planning lady, and she said there are ways that you can get around that, and if you get a development, for instance, if the town were to build housing such as White Street, and they wanted to designate and get an agent to run it. They could designate, I guess, that it was for Littleton, for the possibility of Littleton people. I don't know. I'm not into it that much.
Well, she also said she did not advise having it be 55 and older, but targeted for,
Right.
because that gives you flexibility. If you limit it to 55 and older, people are having trouble selling them when they do, want to vacate, and
the average person.
builders, contractors are not willing to
Right,
build them
contractors aren't
now.
interested, and a lot of people don't want to don't make the decision to go into these things until they're 70 or 75.
But
And-
to back up to what you were saying, Bob, about why Littleton people don't have preference, for Shattuck Street, for Littleton Green, and for 50 Mill, those are all subsidized through federal programs. And I believe that that's why they can't say that only Littleton people, or
Are they
move
only-
Littleton people to
Are
the
they all
top.
federal? I thought that,
No, Pine Tree is state.
That's right.
Yeah,
But it's
one
the
of them
same,
state,
it's the
one of
same
them-
issue,
one
because
of
it's
them
state.
federal.
Milcon.
It's
Yeah.
because it's state that
Oh, when you
they
get
will
into
allow
this-
veterans to move to the top of the list, but not town residents.
I kind of keep my head above water when I start getting into these discussions, because
Right.
there's so much involved, it's very difficult.
The shame of it is that we couldn't have Littleton, like, first preference, and then anybody else,
But I think it's reasonable am I wrong, if the housing subcommittee went to the planning board and said, this is our vision and we would like to see it, they would know how to navigate around, if it's possible, to
would
navigate
have to.
around some of the laws. We would prefer that Littleton residents have priority, and that's something that we would like to see happen. You could go to them and say, this is our vision.
And it would be good if we could indicate them, one or two of our major preferences. For instance, if we wanted White Street type of individual houses on a low level, as opposed to the ones down in Acton, all around the Lyonnaise, which is my favorite restaurant and is extremely expensive, and the houses the apartments look great, but I got jumped on all over when I suggested that they did. But I come from the inner city, so I came from Boston, and that didn't faze me at all. As long as they're well-maintained and beautiful, but keeping the tenor of our community, maybe we need to stay with the. My biggest concern is that if you have the White Street type of houses, you're not going to get as many apartments for people on the same piece of land that you are if you have a three-story apartment with an elevator. And a three-story apartment with an elevator doesn't necessarily mean something awful looking, or, but I would hate to see it put out in the backwoods either.
Yeah.
I would want to have people have access.
Well, as long as it's
And
not
that was another thing we'll get into, was access. Wherever we put our people, they need to be able to have access to the community. They need to be able to get to shopping, they need to be able to get to, and that's difficult too. We had a situation, I think I brought it into the board a few months ago, I think it was Medfield, that they were all voted to have a senior complex, housing complex. But they said, why don't you put it out with the COA? Well, they had put the COA out on the corner, on the farthest corner of Medfield that they could reach. And if I'm saying the wrong town, I apologize to the town. And that point was that the place they wanted to put it was right in back of the main street. And it would have been very lovely, it would have been very nice, but it would have given them walking access to stores, to theater, to, everything. And that's important for people. Especially, and another thing they pointed out was the seniors, when they get to be 80, may lose their license, and they still have 10 or 15 years to live actively.
The Farms was supposed to handle that in Littleton. Remember on the flag land? The Farms down behind the dealership was going to be a 55-plus community.
Really?
It went Banco, or was it not, Joe? You would.
It wasn't, that was like a 40B, every fourth unit had to be affordable.
Okay.
But the other ones were open,
Okay, but they were going to build,
the whole development back there.
yeah.
Some of the roads are in, some of the houses are up and have been up there for 10 years.
Yeah, and they're just, but that was, that's the kind of place where you want, so that you could walk to Donlands if you
Plus, the location is very desirable there, but,
One of the comments made on the presentation was that age 55 communities are in great decline.
Oh,
don't want that.
And reason being because they're amenity-rich, they're pricey, the density and things to do, it's lock up and leave. However, they are not beneficial to contractors.
oh, okay.
That's the problem, nobody wants to.
Contractors don't want to build them because, one, they're not resaleable. I found out how dense they are because I went looking for one a year ago, and I would have to go 30 miles from here to get one. But they're not
We've been
beneficial
looking
to
at a lot of
contractors.
them, and,
Yeah.
They said that they're not
Del
desirable.
Web's.
They were a big thing, hot item in the beginning, but it's not a desirable choice now.
yeah, down in the south, it's huge.
Down
Well-
in the south, that's exactly
Yeah,
what she
she
said,
had- and
warm
she-
climate, but not here.
She heartily recommended that you go for a targeted age, but not say it's 55, a specific age,
Not restricted.
not restricted, so,
That's why they're saying don't age target it.
right.
Interesting.
But I think it's the visual too, that, you know, in that whole, we have so we've come to, we all agree it should be one floor. And I think probably does everybody agree that it should be, if you could do something, and it should be restricted to Littleton residents if possible. There's a
Our
way to do that.
priority to Littleton.
Priority, right, you're right, prioritized for Littleton residents, and
But I
that,
think you're mixing rental property with owning,
oh, okay,
because we were talking about rental property.
That's
and
true.
Priority to Littleton residents,
right,
which is separate from the idea of ownership like White
Right.
Street,
right,
15
Because
Great
White
Road.
Street is private, that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
not,
that's just houses.
yeah. yeah. Is Reed Meadow also that kind of development up off of Harvard Road?
It's individually owned.
It's individually owned.
But that was 50, over 55?
Yeah, he had planned on, he couldn't find people qualified to get into some of the units because of his state requirements.
Okay.
So if you were retired and had a small amount of money put in the bank, that didn't qualify you, so he had trouble selling it. So I think he went back to the planning board and changed and gave a certain amount of money that was put away with the planning board for future housing
Okay.
instead, so.
And then it went all market, all
yeah,
market
it's all
value.
market value.
So there's an example of someone having trouble selling an age-restricted.
Right.
Exactly.
Now, you all completely understand housing, right? That's the way I feel.
We're aces.
it is very confusing, very, very
But
confusing.
we need to, when we go
So
into the planning
complex.
board, we should go in with at least some sense of suggestion. I'm talking as the subcommittee, and you all hopefully backing us up and coming with us, that when we talk with them on January 6th, we want to be able to share with them some significant ideas as to
Right.
what might be possibilities. That they can look at and see what they need to do to restrict and rezone in order to make them happen. One of the things that was a hot topic on the master plan thing was people who were saying in-law apartments where, fine, if you're in-law and you have them come in, but then when they leave, they die, you can't redo anything with the place the way the law says now. And the other thing is that if you are doing this, and if we had a couple that wanted to take their big home and instead of moving out of it, to make 2 rooms or 3 rooms in an apartment for them to live in and to use the rest as rental income to rent to somebody, and they couldn't do that either. So that was a real problem.
So, and that's because of the zoning restrictions and everything as they currently are, correct?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think, was brought up a lot at the master plan, that needs to be addressed.
Now
Yeah.
supposedly there is a plan, Pam,
The housing production plan.
the housing
which
production
was done
plan
in
that the planning board did.
2014, 2015.
That's something that we should look at, that's on the website,
You can send it
and
out.
read that. And if you come up with some ideas after reading that, you should email them to me. And then I will talk with the housing committee and see if we need to put anything else into our input to the planning board after reading that production plan.
That's a good idea. I think. Nancy had something she wanted to
Yes,
say.
I wasn't ignoring you. I just wanted, that thought was in the back of my head.
I was at the planning board meeting, and I agree with everything you said. A lot of people were disappointed because we were expecting the meeting to be somewhat different. I wrote the planning board a letter, not as a Friends for the Council on Aging, as Nancy Levine, stating that I thought the speaker was very good, but that we needed more information, and that I really hoped that they would have a public meeting for the seniors during the daytime, giving us enough advance notice so that we can get the seniors out to hear what they have to say. And I got a response that basically said, thank you for your letter. I will share my letter and their response with you.
Oh,
You can
okay.
use that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just summarize. We have a time frame here that we could go on and on and on over this housing issue, I think, because it is complex. But a couple of you have spoken, some of you have not spoken, but,
Well, just, Jean, you haven't said anything. Do you just want to input
Excuse me.
anything right now?
excuse
Okay.
me, Patty, I was talking. Thank you.
Sorry.
You don't want to say anything?
No, because everything was already just about
Okay.
said.
So, and I think the housing production plan, Pam is forwarding that to the board, the housing subcommittee members, and then she can, well, why don't you just send it to the whole committee?
I'm going to send it to everyone again.
So the whole
I had sent it
COA
out
vote.
before, but I'll send it out
I'm going
again.
to ask you, this is an opportunity, and the housing subcommittee needs our help and our input. So please read that and offer your suggestions to them. And Mark, that meeting is January 5th, I think, or something like that with the planning board. It's right after New Year's. And we won't be meeting
It's
again.
not the 6th, right?
Is it the 5th, I
I
think?
think it's the 5th, it's Tuesday night, I believe. I looked it up.
Planning board meeting on Tuesday nights, Joe, do you know?
I thought they were usually Thursdays.
Thursdays? Well, it's the first week of January, anyway. The bottom line is,
3rd, 4th, 5th, it's the 5th, because the Thursday night is the 5th.
all right, so it is the 5th. And so they don't have a lot of time to get themselves prepared for this, and they want to represent us accurately. So please do share your thoughts and comments with them as you go along. I think, do you all understand the issue? I think now? I know it's very complicated, but give them the feedback they need, please. And take a look at the housing production plan. I've not read that myself, and I intend to do that, so.
I would like to just say that I did appreciate the fact of the number of people that went out to the master plan task group last week,
Right.
because it showed that we have an interest, and there were a number of people not,
We have that down under new business to talk about, so,
it was good.
yep. Okay, are we okay to move on from the housing
Please.
subcommittee and the need for feedback?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
okay.
very much.
Okay. All right, moving on to new business. Update on the needs assessment recommendations.
So everyone has a copy in their packet of the slides that I'm going to show up here, which for the benefit of those in the audience, you'll see up here on the TV screen. This is a presentation that I made to the Board of Selectmen last Monday night. I had been asked to come in and update them on where we were at in terms of their goals to improve services for seniors in Littleton. So in both 2015 and 2016, the Board of Selectmen set the goal to bring more to the seniors. This is where we got the funding from the Board of Selectmen to do the needs assessment, which, just for those who may not be familiar with it, was done to everyone in town who was over 50 years old. It was completed in September of 2015. We got about a 30% return, which is a very high return rate for a mailed survey, and got a lot of really good information about where people were at and what they wanted. One of the chief recommendations out of the report that the Gerontology Institute at UMass gave back to us and to the selectmen was that we needed to plan for the fact that the number of seniors in Littleton is going to rise significantly. And the projections here, if you look at the red line at the bottom, that's raw numbers and percentage of seniors for the town population as it's expected to be by 2035. You can see it goes up steadily, and at the same time, the blue line, which is the total of people in town, comes down to meet that. So both a larger number of seniors and a larger percentage is seniors. And this is what they say we need to plan for. The report, the 110-page report that they presented, had 7 key findings. These are the 7. I've mentioned the growth situation, the recognition that we're part of the safety net in conjunction with the police and fire to identify vulnerable people and see that they get what they need. Another key finding was that people are very invested in staying in Littleton, the 50-plus population. There are many long-term residents and many more who say that they want to stay. And then number 4, which we've already started to talk about a little bit, that transportation is going to become a critical need. We're a very car-oriented town. So that's why we're supporting efforts like Complete Streets, efforts to build sidewalks, started the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, for example, to be advocates for other ways to get around other than just one person in a car. They were very clear that they felt it was both a moral obligation and desirable for the town to provide services to the seniors and the disabled, which I agree with completely. Interestingly, although there were a lot of people who responded to the survey and said they weren't very familiar with what we had to provide, they were very much in support of it, and they felt that it needed to be provided, and we had a very good reputation with people, and that was key finding 7, that we're seen as a valuable asset, and certainly people in town are interested in keeping that going. What do these numbers say? They say that we're going to get more people at the COA. One of the questions that was asked was, do you anticipate that you will be participating in the COA, even if you're not participating now? And you can see very large numbers said that they were very likely or somewhat likely to participate in what we're doing and to ask for help and services from us. So this is the statistics to back up what Tina and I have seen happening in the last 2 years in terms of growth. So from those key findings were some recommendations, and I'd like to spend a little time talking about this just to update everyone on what was going on. When I met with the Board of Selectmen, we didn't have a lot of time. There were a couple of public meetings planned. The first around this idea of the substantial growth. In recognition of that, we've been working closely with the master plan process. I've met with several of the working groups with the consultants to share with them both the knowledge that I have about what the seniors in town want, again, pulled from the needs assessment, and just generalized, helping them to focus in on what seniors need and want, just like this whole discussion about housing. Seniors have a different thing at the forefront of their minds when they talk about housing as compared to younger populations. Tina and I both regularly meet with staff, both with the State Department of Elder Affairs and with COA staff from other towns. This is a great way for us to keep up to date on what's going on in terms of the trends and the directions. The state is good with pointing us towards issues that are coming to the forefront. Tina went this year to the MCOA conference, and I went last year. She and I alternate on that so that there's someone still in the office at all times, and that's another place to kind of put our finger on the pulse of what the issues are in terms of seniors and their needs. In regard to the key finding around working closely with police and fire, I have to say that I feel like we have an excellent working relationship with them. Our fire department has been very supportive for us. They come in on Thursdays, they do the blood pressures in the diner. They're always there for us. They will be participating, both the police and fire will be participating in this emergency preparedness session. We work jointly with them in terms of protective service orders. They often will tell us about vulnerable seniors in the community, asking if they are on our radar, if we're already working with them, and if they're not, using us to help to advocate to get Minutemen Senior Services or other kinds of services involved. And of course, we refer out to other agencies when needed. That's one of the chief aims of what we do. We can't provide every service here, but we can certainly hook people up with a lot of services and act as an advocate in getting the services that people need. The housing situation, as we've all talked about, this was certainly identified as an issue, that people are looking for downsizing options. There is a need in town for different services. I think this was heard loud and clear by the Board of Selectmen. I think planning is starting to listen very closely to this and to try to find solutions. We just talked at length about the work we're doing with the planning board to provide them with that perspective. This board, if not this board, what other board? This board brings personal knowledge as seniors, but also the knowledge of having contact with a community of seniors and having some feel for what people want and need. To say nothing of the reading and education and background that you get in just studying the issues and understanding what people are up against. In response to housing in particular, we created the Housing Subcommittee as a way to focus and give us an opportunity to talk more in depth and in more detail and be available again to entities like the Planning Board to have some place to go to ask questions. Home modification was something that was brought up in the needs assessment. People want to modify their homes so that they can age in place and remain independent, and we refer to state modification programs. We don't have the funding to provide a program ourselves, but this is another situation where we can advocate and refer people out. Around transportation, you know, in terms of transportation, we're really the only game in town. If you don't drive, there are very few ways to get around unless you have a strong network of people that are willing to take you whenever you want to go, because there are no taxis, there is no bus service, and all the stops on the train are in another town. So that's not the way to get from here to there.
We could all become Uber drivers.
Well, I have to tell you, Uber is one of the things that's on my radar. I'm trying to think 5 years out in terms of transportation planning. One of my fantasies would be that we could do a voucher program where a senior would pay $5, but the Uber driver would get paid the going rate. And I suspect that if we were able to do that, that we could get both sides of the equation working in our favor. The seniors would get to ride to Market Basket or wherever for $5. The drivers would get fully paid, and I think that seniors, some of the younger seniors, would be interested in being drivers and picking up a little cash on the side, being Uber drivers. If they're not going out of town, they're not going to Boston, they're not going out on 495. So I think that's you laugh, Susan, but I think that's an area that we really need to think about. Needham just started a pilot project. Both Cambridge and Boston are running pilot projects using Uber instead of contracted services like the ride. So I'm definitely thinking about this and hoping that we can bring this along. Because increasingly, one of the things I've learned out of this senior transportation class is there's no one solution. Seniors have a variety of needs, just like there's a variety of people that are in the category of so-called senior. And those needs, in some cases, can be met by curb-to-curb service, where the bus pulls up and they come out and they hop on. But we have a significant number of people who suffer from dementia, who really need an escort to go with them. We have people who come out of Emerson or Neshoba following, endoscopy or some other procedure where they've been sedated, and they need a person to go with them. So there's a range of what people need, and we need to speak to that. We're really maxed out right now. We do about 500 rides a month, and that's pretty much as busy as we can get. We have a denied rides number that is pretty steady in the double digits for each month, somewhere over 10, sometimes 12 people. The majority of our rides are medical, and we do give priority to medical rides. So those denied rides tend to be what you might call more an amenity ride. But for the person who doesn't get it, it's important to them that they didn't get to go to the grocery, or they didn't get to go to the hairdresser, or whatever. Transportation is really a hot issue. And one of the reasons I harp on it is because it is such a support for everything else. If you talk about healthy aging, if you talk about aging in place, if you talk about staying independently living in your own home, you need to get to the doctor, you need to get good food, you need social interaction, you need some exercise. These are all things that if you're not driving are very hard to get. And I do believe that operating a transportation program brings a measure of dignity and independence as well. So that people don't have to ask family members, they don't have to be working around someone else's schedule. They can call up and they can say, I need a ride on this day and at this time. But I'll be honest with you, with the kind of funding we have right now, yes, we are 5 days a week, that's better than some communities. Yes, we are all day, that's better than some communities. No, we're not on the weekends. No, we're not in the evenings, and during busy times, we do have to turn people away. So there's more that can be done there. One of the things I would really love to do in terms of transportation would be a robust, well-done volunteer program, but that requires staff time to make that work, someone to make the calls and make it happen. But we'll get to that later. I've got a request in around that. Item number 5 was caregivers. This was probably the biggest surprise that came out of the needs assessment, is the needs of caregivers. People who are caring for an adult in the home and who are in many cases quite overwhelmed. At the time that we did the needs assessment, we had just started up the what used to be called the Chit Chat Club, which is now called the Littleton Social Club, a group for isolated seniors. I'm happy to say that that group is running at full capacity. We expanded from 2 days a week to 3 days a week. I'd love to make it 5 days a week, but we just don't have the space for it. The only reason we're able to do that is because we do charge for that group, and that gives me enough money to pay for the person who runs the group. Because it does, again, require a person who's paid to take the responsibility. Nothing wrong with volunteers, but volunteers go away to Florida, and they have lives and grandchildren and what have you. And
There's also expertise, too, that is needed for that kind of, when you've got physical and mental impairment, you need to have people who know how to handle it properly.
And I'll tell you, I'm selfish. You know, I run my front desk completely with volunteers and senior tax workers, and they do a terrific job, but it requires a lot of my time to keep the schedule, to fill the holes when people can't be there. When I have a paid employee, and I'm pointing over at Tina right now, she operates very independently. I don't have to, you know, every day check in to make sure she's here, and if she's not here, get somebody to take her spot. So, you know, you get what you pay for, and we really have to put some energy in sometimes to get what we need.
And quite frankly, I think people don't understand how complex it is running a volunteer program. It's not a simple thing. And I know, for example, Loaves and Fishes they had an office manager, volunteer coordinator, and they finally just recently developed another position, paid position, where they have a volunteer coordinator, nothing else, because that's a full-time job in itself.
Because you've got recruitment, you've got retention, you've got training, you've got scheduling.
You've got working with them so that they
Yeah.
remain, they stay, they want to volunteer.
Motivation.
It's a big job.
And we've been fortunate here in Littleton. We have some people who have put untold hours into taking that role, and Barbara McCrae is probably a good example of that. It's almost as if that's her job, but she's really dedicated to it. But you can't always rely on having people available who will
No.
put that kind of time and energy in to marshaling the volunteers and getting done what needs to be done.
It is Not
For
a
the
simple job.
For caregivers, we started the caregiver support group. Originally, when we started it, Tina and I said, let's run it 5 or 6 times and see what we get. At the end of the 5th month, they said, oh, please, can we keep going? We said, okay, we'll run until the summer, but then we'll close down for the summer. We got to summer, they said, oh, please, can we keep going? So now it's been 2.5 years. Again, steady stream of people, always some new people coming in, even as other people they're caring for get placed or die, and they no longer have the need so much to be part of the group. This is going to do nothing but go up
I was
in
gonna say,
numbers.
is the 12 persons large enough, or do we need to have more if we could possibly do it?
What I would love is that we could meet more than one time a month, as well as Tina and I have talked about that if the group gets much larger, we're going to have to start breaking it into 2 each time we do meet in order to allow time for people to talk about their issues and to really get an adequate discussion going. We see it as a real educational media for people.
Yeah,
This is a
You
place
need
to
talk
give
about what's
information.
happening to them and how they can get around it, and others who are in the same circumstance sometimes can give help.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes it's easier to accept it from a person who's in those shoes than to accept it from the people who are supposedly leading the group. It's clear that the caregivers need more support than we're able to offer right now, and I really wish I had the staff to provide that to them. One of the other key findings was that we need to do education. We need to let people know, this is a recommendation. There were a lot of people that were aware dimly that we were out there, but I encounter this all the time. I'll be talking to someone and they'll say, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know that EHS did that. I didn't know the COA had that available. So since the assessment, we've been doing some townwide mailings of the broadcaster, which is a way to get it in the hands of more people. There's about 3,500 households. It's not an insignificant cost. Friends have a gift for postage for the broadcaster, and they've been generous in helping us with that. I have my weekly column in the Independent, which runs when they choose.
When you're in the mood.
And they're in the mood, right? We do use Action Unlimited quite extensively and do flyers. I actually talked with the Action Unlimited people at one point about including our broadcaster in Action Unlimited, which would put it in, again, every household. And there are towns that do that. Stowe's doing that. But it would be a significantly higher cost to provide that kind of information. So I don't think that's within our wherewithal at this point. We've put up a Facebook page, and we try to keep populating it with photos and what we're doing to build interest with the younger cohort.
What kind
Because,
of hits do you get on that?
fair, but it's a different group. They asked the question specifically in the needs assessment of how do you get your information, and overwhelmingly it was paper. It was the broadcaster. That was how people, or the Independent, that was how people got information. But each year, there's a new group that graduates to become 65 that's more media savvy, more Facebook, smartphone oriented. So I think we have to be prepared to offer them a way to get information. And we do our weekly email, which the numbers keep growing with that. And we have quite a group of people, about 400, who ask for the broadcaster by email. And anybody who wants the broadcaster by email, just go to the town website. On the home page, on the right-hand side where it says notifications, you can select that. Indicate that you'd like to get our newsletter, put your email address in, and not only do you get it before the first of the month, before it gets mailed out to everyone, it comes in color, which a lot of people like.
You didn't mention the fact that you dropped the word senior from the title of the broadcaster.
No, I didn't mention that.
But there was no, just so that people would look at it more readily.
Yeah.
The broadcaster's a great name.
That's what we've always called it. We've
Yeah.
always called it the broadcaster.
So, yeah. But that, small things like that can make a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Pamela came up with that, so It was great. Nobody even complained. It was done.
Don't skip the last 4 slides.
The last 4 slides.
slides.
Yeah. And the other thing that we did with awareness is we did create an awareness subcommittee.
Right.
A whole group of people that are helping me to brainstorm and to come up with ideas and to spread the word. And the awareness subcommittee was really helpful this summer when we did the third Thursdays. You know, even if not a lot of people stop by to talk, the very fact that we are present at these events and they see us, the wellness fair, great turnout for that, great vendors for that, but even just the publicity for those who didn't go, the idea that, yes, we're there, oh gee, we're connected with wellness, oh gee, we're not just a senior center, you know, we're a broad range of services. And I think that's all to our advantage in terms of getting the word out. I'd like to do more speaking. I've spoken to a couple of groups, and of course I have that experience where whatever I'm going to talk about, they're like, oh, we didn't know you did that. But I like that. I like to be able to educate people and give them a feel for what we have available. Another recommendation that they made was that we need an increase in space, which is no surprise to everyone. But also they recommended an increase in staffing. They made the flat statement that we really are at capacity and that there's more need than we're able to provide. 2 years ago, we increased outreach by 8 hours, bringing Tina from 4 days to 5 days. Again, that's been totally and completely sucked up in dealing with people who are under 60 and with some of the growth in town. You mentioned several times down on Great Road, 15 Great Road, or 2A, the development down there, we got 25 new clients out of there. That's a lot of people with need. Fuel assistance, food stamps, people who need transportation, disabled people who need our assistance. They attend our, things like our anxiety group. So that as the town changes, there's more people that come to us with need. I already mentioned the idea that my dementia group and the caregiver support group are greatly helped out by contract staff. But again, contract staff have, you know, only a tenuous connection with us because they're not in a real position and they're not permanent employees, and at any moment they could get a better offer and go off someplace else. And of course, so many of our fitness and those other activities are done by contract people, but that has less impact if someone were to change out on that. And we use volunteers, and we use senior tax workers everywhere. And very, very, I think we use them well, but boy, there's a lot that we do that would not be possible without them. You look down in the diner, you look at the people who help with the lunch program, people who assist with the breakfast program that my friends run, the Meals on Wheels drivers. I mentioned that my front desk people are senior tax workers and volunteers. We have senior tax workers all over town performing really important functions. And Bonnie Holston is raising the amount of money in the budget next year so that we'll have more opportunities for senior tax workers to help. They're a real boon to town departments. I went back when I started looking at, you know, the needs assessment and then how we responded to it, because I wanted to see if the efforts that we have taken since September of 2015 have resulted in increases. And these are the kind of increases that we've seen. On the left, this is an unduplicated number. So in fiscal year 2015, which ended in July of 2015, we had seen 473 different people in town. The following year, 677, a 43% increase. That's a lot. If we look at sign-ins, which is people coming multiple times, again, from 11,964 to 14,041. Those 677 people came through the door a lot of times. Average attendance per day in 2016,
Wow.
33. 33 people. Every day, that's an average. are here. And I think part of the reason it's not obvious to people is because we're kind of scattered. So people are downstairs and they're in the diner and they're in an exercise group and they come in to see Tina and they're, in one of the programs that's going on in 233 or in 230. They're kind of scattered around, but that's a lot of people.
Or they're up
each
here at
day.
a board meeting.
And transportation, I don't have to tell you how much transportation has increased. If we go back to 2014, a 32% increase. We're running close to 6,000 rides a year. That's a lot of trips, and that's a lot of miles on the van, a lot of miles on our van that we have to maintain, a lot of miles on the MART van. And 53% of our rides are medically connected. So they're really life-sustaining as opposed to just life-enhancing. But everybody'd like to have their lives enhanced, I'm sure. So the question you ask is, can we continue this sort of increase? And I'm sorry to say that the answer is not really. We're maxed out on transportation. We do have this denied rides number. There's just a flat number of hours that I can put people on the road because there's just not enough dollars to do anything else. I am going to make a request that when we get the van, remember I got the grant for a brand-new bus, a 14-passenger bus, $85,000. I'm making a request that at the time that that comes to us, that we get to keep the blue van, the 8-passenger, to use it as a backup if our van is off the road, but also if we could get some additional funding to use it during peak times or perhaps on those weekend and evening hours for special things like the Tuesday night community dinner. When I know that right now we're using volunteers to provide rides, but it'd be great if we could provide transportation for people to and from that event. I have, for the last 2 years, been running this shortfall. We've been running over the $68,000. I've been able to piece it together, a little bit of grant funding, a little bit from the formula grant, dipping into this transportation fund, which we established, asked the Board of Selectmen to allow us to solicit for that. And now with this GoFundMe, we're in healthy condition for this year. But I'm going to need additional funding if we're going to try to increase transportation at all. Again, numbers of people coming through the door, programs that we offer, we're pretty much maxed out.
Yeah,
And
you
this time
said
is full.
because of current staffing and funding, but also because of space.
And space is a definite limitation.
We are getting to the point where we can't put on more programs because we don't have space to put it in. And somehow we've got to find the answers that'll come with, hopefully the master plan and those kind of things. But
Right. But I have limited control over that.
Right.
I have to rely on other people to solve the space problem. If I had more staff, we could expand, for example, the caregiver support, which is in the evening. And we've had no trouble with finding a location for that because we have it in our diner. And we just got as part of the renovation plan in there, we got a new flat screen so that we can show slides. We have a lunch and learn that's going to be happening, for example, in January, and for the first time, we'll be able to show slides during those kinds of presentations. The plan going forward is that had we not come up with this additional funding, we would have probably in May and June started to curtail rides, taking the van off the road earlier, saying no to some of the non-medical rides. Don't have to worry about that now for this year. And
this year being until July 1st.
until July 1st, right? And Tina and I talk every week about how she has to triage around the outreach cases. We don't really do outreach. We do people who self-identify because we just don't have, again, the bandwidth to go out there. We know there are vulnerable populations, but they require a great deal of digging to get those people in the door. There's a reason they're not coming to us. They're resistant. They're depressed. They are fearful. They've had bad experiences in the past. There's a long list of reasons. So we deal with the people who do come in, but what happens is Tina has to, in some cases, move people to the bottom of the list, whether they're Littleton residents or not. Triage means you help those who you really think that you can help, And that also means that there are some that you have to pass over, even though they may be first in line, because you just really can't do a whole lot for them. Tina does an extraordinary job. In many cases, we're kind of gluing together a variety of services for people. And she does a great job of balancing that and making it happen. And she's got good relationships with some of the other groups in town that can also help, Salvation Army and Loaves and Fishes and what have you.
Hit the last one.
Well, in anticipation of the more people in town, more need, I asked the Board of Selectmen to give me a full-time outreach worker, and when I talked to the FinCom in January, I'm going to make the same request to the combined boards of FinCom and BOS. It would cost us around $55,000 to get a qualified person. We could put additional services out there for caregivers. We could do more outreach to them. We could truly do outreach to some of these vulnerable populations, which we know some of them are in these housing complexes, but they don't come through our doors. We could continue to build on the relationship that we have with fire and police, particularly around protective service orders and getting vulnerable people under the auspices of Minuteman Senior Services, so there would be some state money to help them. And the personal thing that I'd really like to see us do is start to build some strong relationships with the people who know who's being discharged into our community from Emerson, from Neshoba, and from Leahy. These are very vulnerable people. They often have chronic illnesses. They've been through some kind of a massive insult, perhaps an operation, or they may be undergoing chemotherapy or something like that. And there's a great opportunity there to help those people. But we need good relationships with those agencies to identify them at the time when they are most in need. And also, this person could help with providing direction to volunteers, doing things like running a volunteer driving program, doing the recruitment, doing the training, doing all the scheduling that needs to happen with that. It's a people thing. And you mentioned the idea of motivation. That, you know, one of the jobs that you do when you're working with volunteers is to figure out why they're doing it and make sure that they get their needs met as well, so that they keep coming. And I'm also asking for a half-time van driver, a 19.5 position hour. That'll be costing about $15,000. We'll be getting that new bus, 14-passenger bus, and this would give us the opportunity to run more. If I were guaranteed that I had the money for a half-time driver, that would give us 20 more hours on the road every week. That's a significant chunk. I wouldn't necessarily use all of it at the very beginning, but again, I see that rising tide of people that as they become aware of what we have to offer, they then take advantage of it. And so I threw in a few slides here that came from that September 2015 report. They bolster what we've been talking about. 3/4 of people over 50 in Littleton regard staying in Littleton as very important. It's a lot of people that plan to hang around. Very, very small slice there that says that it's not very important that they stay here in this town. They recognized when they did the assessment that we do have these vulnerable populations. Although there are some very wealthy areas in town and some homes that are going for some really interesting prices, 38% of householders who are 65 and over have incomes of under $25,000 annually. That's not much money to live on. Disability, 40% of the seniors age 75 and up have at least one disability. This is from the American Census. These are not our numbers, these are government numbers. And as you add an additional disability on someone, like a chronic illness and a fall or a hip replacement or COPD, it just becomes more difficult for them to do the things that need to be done. And then this whole business with isolation. 8% of those over 80 leave home less than once a week. Regardless of age, somewhere between 5 and 8% of everyone who responded said they have contact with friends or relatives less than once a week.
That's scary.
That's a
Yes,
very
it is.
scary, that's a very
Yeah.
scary number. That's a long time laying on the floor with no one checking on you. God forbid. And I just want to call out that they were very clear in the assessment that what we are offering is seen as an asset, that it's valued, that it's well-regarded. They don't seem to see us as just a frivolous or a nice-to-have but not a really important part of the community. But rather, when we gave them the list of services, they rated them as very important. And there were, out of the entire list, there were only 4 programs that we suggested that they said were not really important. Everything else, at least half of the people said they thought that it was an important facet of what we had to offer. The assessment is online and is available to anyone. Again, if you just go to the town website and in the search box, put in needs assessment, it'll take you right to the link. It's lengthy, it's 110 pages, but if you read the latter sections, you can see quite a bit there about the recommendations and the issues.
And if you want it in hard copy, you can come to the office and
Yes.
and take it out and rent it.
We lend it out kind of like the library to anyone who would like a hard copy, because sometimes it's easier to flip through a
Right.
hard copy.
Wow, that's very exciting, I think. And
Well,
I
did-
think the
did
Board of Selectmen-
Did the selectmen respond positively? Did they really
Extremely positive.
find that was helpful?
I think, to put it as Mr. Lady said at the very end, we recognize it's a growing baby, referring to that population. And as opposed, I've been on the board a long time, I haven't seen the board so positive on trying to help the seniors out. We don't have all the solutions right now, but at least they have 5 people say, we recognize this problem. And
Right.
as far as the
Great.
salaries, that'll be, in my estimate, a 5-0 vote from our board to recommend what you just said. And of course, we also understand the space needs entirely. And that's being worked on a separate thing that's coming up. It's about-
But I'm glad to hear that, and I have had the same feeling that in the last 2 years, as I've listened to the Board of Selectmen, and I've known many of them over the years, that they have been very, very positive to our needs and very concerned at how to best, help us, and I think that's just great. I appreciate
I'm very
that.
pleased at the sustained interest
Right.
that the board is showing,
It's
that your
all-
board is showing.
Well, some of them are becoming, I've watched them become senior citizens.
Up on the bar,
Or
right,
their
Joe?
parents are senior citizens, or,
I hear about almost every meeting, when they talk about something for the older population, they all turn to me.
yeah. And you go,
That's what I
why
keep
are you
thinking.
doing this?
Gee, I'm gonna get there someday, I'm only
I
78.
remember when you were the young kid on the board, you and
I
Glavy.
remember, I have some pictures back then.
Comes all too fast. I always realize that.
Madam Chair, I would like to express personal thanks to Pam for that presentation to the Board of Selectmen and for sharing it with us, because I think sometimes we need to hear it too. And I've been through the needs assessment, I've read the whole thing, I haven't done the other plan, but I will get to it, I hope. One of those meetings that I miss, I'll do that instead.
Thank you, Bob.
No, I didn't say anything, Patty.
No, I think it's really important that we understand what she is doing and what she's proposing so that we can support her, because I think we all agree that
Well, that's our job.
that's right, and,
And one of the things some of the newer members may not realize is what a dynamic increase there has been from the directors of the COA and the elderly housing, the elderly and health program, since Pam and Tina have been here, and I've worked through a lot of years of it, and I'll tell you, I am just excited every day about what is being accomplished in spite of the fact of all of the problems and needs. It's just unbelievable.
No, and the first step, I think, is, as Joe said, is recognizing the need and the problem, and then you're gonna, it'll follow. But if the recognition is there, yeah, it's a problem, then we gotta, so it is, I feel the same way. It's a very exciting time to be involved, I think.
I had
So-
someone ask me recently if, I get overwhelmed by looking at all of this that's laid out. And I told her that when that happens, then I just start looking more closely at some of the individual successes that we have. And can pat ourselves on the back that,
Right.
we have responded to some of the needs. We can't do everything. And, we're not Park and Rec, we're not an enterprise fund, we're never going to make money for you. We're always going to be a service and we're always going to cost you money. But I think that it's worth it. And I think that the citizens
And
are
what,
worth putting that energy into.
and what we are doing is absolutely phenomenal in comparison to most towns in the state. I hear that from people from other towns. If you've been to some of the board, they say, you're doing what? You're doing what? You're doing what? And even Emmett took our needs assessment and used that as an example
Right.
for other towns. And he has talked about things that we have done here and what we're accomplishing. And I'm real proud of that because we've really tried to care
Well,
for our
it's
people.
the leadership,
Absolutely.
so,
And your
Exactly.
support.
well,
Okay, before she gets a big head, I think we ought to move on.
all right. And actually, I'm going to suggest that we've already talked about the holiday closings, item B under new business. Pamela did mention the fact that the COA is closed December 26th and January 2nd. So we're going to skip right over that. And we have mentioned in passing, when we were talking about housing, the master plan December 7th meeting. And I know Mary Pickard and myself and Bob were there. I think that was it. But it was good, because we got pretty good coverage, even though I left early. I was tired that night. Do you have anything to add to that, Mary? You were...
I found it a little bit confusing, what they were asking and bringing out these pieces. But the information was there, and it was very interesting to hear how other people perceived this whole thing. That's what I found. That's it.
Actually, I'm just going to throw out and just fill you in a little here. They came and put forth the goals that they had developed from the previous master plan meeting, I believe it was. And there were, I think, 1, 2, 7, 8, 3, 6, 8 goals. And then they wanted you, they had, as they did at the other meetings, they had stations, and they wanted people to go around to the stations, and they really were looking for ideas and suggestions. It was to be a brainstorming session, and they made it very clear. It's not to be critical of somebody's idea, or, it was just mainly, but of course, some of the group leaders were really good at controlling the groups, and others weren't so good, and so it would get off track a little. That was my experience.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you get bogged down a little with somebody mentioning something and then a discussion occurring about that, and that shouldn't have happened. It was just to get the ideas out and on paper. So that was my frustration with the event. But anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was good that we went, and Bob certainly alluded to it when he was talking about the housing things and all of the complexities that became evident to all of us. I think we were all kind of listening to people and gaining information, and to me, that's the value of going. I didn't say too much. I don't want to talk a lot in public.
The one thing I found very interesting was some lady who I have no idea who she was,
The Lexington.
probably in her 40s, said, what we ought to do is move the town center away from the common down a ways and build a whole new town center around it and all the housing. And that didn't sound too bad at the minute when I thought about it.
And then there was the lady from Lexington that was talking, was that the one? I think she talked about
I have
that.
no idea. She was just,
Yeah,
she was
Lexington
just.
Center.
Yeah,
It
Lexington
was a
Center.
couple of ladies who were involved in the, came to share their ideas. And she was just feeling that, maybe that with the sewer plan, I think it was in the one that talked about a little bit of the sewer plan and the center of town, and what was the center of town. And she just said, maybe we ought to just move the center of town and rebuild around a new center of town.
Do in Lexington that they have apartments above
Yeah,
businesses.
above, that was one of the things that came up with.
Yeah, and
having-
that's a way to maybe build in, you'd have to have an elevator for seniors to benefit from those apartments, but there are apartments in Lexington apparently, above businesses, but only like 2 stories high, not a big building.
Well, when we fall into a vat of money, we'll do that.
Yeah, I know. So, anyway, anything else about the master plan?
What I've said in the minutes is four persons from the board attended the meeting. In some cases, it was confusing, but the 8 topics of discussion gave people the ability to air their burning questions, and that was the big thing. They asked us 4 other questions, but in each case, they had 2 burning questions, and boy, did people key on those burning questions,
Right.
because they were all the same burning questions that we were having, and it was an interesting meeting. I managed to make all 8 of the subcommittees, and of course, in some cases, they were frequented by people who were interested in one particular subject, like the conservation people went to the conservation, and some of us went because we knew that there were zoning change needs in more than one area. And I thought the government one was very well handled, and there was another one, on whether there should be a community center for all people. And that was very well handled by the people who were doing it, and they really got people to share their ideas and so forth. And the one on government, the same way, they're ensuring, and they weren't too hard on you guys. They were very good. They were kind of pleased with our form of government, but it was fascinating. It was interesting.
And actually, mark your calendars now, because the next meeting, I found my note here, is January 25th, I believe, next master plan. January 25th. And they're going to be developing action plans then, according to whatever her name is, the gal that's the planning board has working with them.
Maren?
Mern?
Maren
No,
Toole?
the lady that's,
Judy? Consultant?
Judy? Yeah, the
Judy.
consultant, Judy.
To develop
I think I have in my note says to develop action plans.
action.
So that will be the focus, and maybe people can get to it. Of course, Susan won't be able to go.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Charm.
Okay. Anything else on the master plan? It all ties into everything, it seems. All right, Pam, I think I went to this presentation on the Eversound hearing enhancement system. And Pam would like to speak to that a little bit. It's wonderful.
I was very favorably impressed with this. A guy walks in with something that looks like a bag with a bowling ball.
Yeah.
Sits it down, opens it up, and it's all contained right in there. Headsets for people, a wireless unit, a wireless microphone, so a person who's doing a presentation in a meeting can just put the microphone on. People put the headsets on, and the guy's voice is right there in your ear. Or in a setting like this where they're using microphones, it plugs into the microphone, and instead of making all the noise in the room louder, it makes just the voices that come through the microphones louder. It was the best product that I've ever seen for providing hearing enhancement. And we had some discussion about, I think Sharon Corbin was saying that she went to a theater where the whole theater was set up and everybody got headphones, but that just works in that room.
Right.
This, literally, you put it back in the case and you carry it any place that you would want. You could carry it to town meeting. You could carry it to a selectman meeting. And those people who are having trouble hearing, just puts it right there.
Put the headphones on and they can hear. And he left the room.
And we could still hear him. He went down the
Yeah.
hallway and we could still hear him.
And we had
He had
the-
the microphone on.
Yeah. It's just remarkable and reasonable in cost. It's not thousands of dollars, It's just it's a realistic amount. I mean, that we might be able to find a way to raise.
Less than $3,000.
Right. And
So
it-
I talked to the Friends, and the Friends said that they would like this board to write a letter of request for them to purchase it. And that then we can take it to their board and have a discussion of it.
Wonderful.
We had a couple of Friends people who were there who were familiar with it from other settings.
It was great.
And this would be available to anyone in the town government that needed it for a meeting?
I would say anyone in town government. I wouldn't make it available to the public.
No,
Because it
no,
is a
but-
pricey item.
If selectmen wanted it for their meeting, or planning board, or FinCom, they could all use it.
We can bring our toy and let everybody use it. The really cool part about it is that the base unit has 10 headsets, but you can put up to 100 headsets on one base unit.
Really?
Wow.
And you can buy them in sets of 10. So if you start routinely going to meetings and all 10 are being used, you can buy another 10. And then when you are using all 20, you can buy another 10.
And the nice thing about it is that, it's a headset, and everybody wears headsets nowadays, it seems. It's not as foreign-looking
And no
thing.
wires, it's all wireless.
No, yeah. Just great.
Interesting, because at our last meeting, we had someone in the audience that thought those microphones were this, so everyone in the room could hear. We had a gentleman in the back of the room, he couldn't hear what was going on.
Right.
Right, and it happens a lot.
Yep. And these
So
are
they
for
would be
cable,
helpful.
but you could plug into them, and then he could hear. And it has volume control, so you can
Yeah.
really crank it up if you need to.
I would move to send a letter of request to the Friends to consider a purchase of the unit.
Second.
All those in favor? A unanimous vote. Bob? Aye. Great. And that's another exciting thing. I just was totally amazed at it when I saw it. So. All right. Okay, where you are, moving up to the reports. Tina, are you in a rush by any chance?
I think I'm okay.
You okay? Because I always feel bad making,
Yeah, you gotta go first.
she likes to stay, she says. So,
They've just been beating Tina's door down since it started snowing.
oh,
It's just, yeah,
you want, shall we let her do her
Oh,
report first?
absolutely.
Okay.
okay. Right, thank you.
We should move her up on the reports even to the first, maybe.
Yeah, thank you.
At least do that much.
Okay, well, the outreach office has been busy with both ages, under 60 and over 60, and we've been doing a lot of fuel assistance and Cooper funds, accessing, Cooper funds for extra financial assistance. And Pamela and I have been meeting with some other charitable groups that are trying to do some things for some clients in needs that are above and beyond what we're able to do. We've been the Salvation Army Good Neighbor Energy Fund starts officially in January, so we're going to be letting people know who had a little bit over the financial guidelines for the SMOC Fuel Assistance Program to apply for this one. The funding is a little bit, limited. It's about $350, for the season, but it's a good program. I have been actually accessing some of the Salvation Army vouchers this month that more than in the previous month, and those have been for food.
And Tina, you and I had this discussion about fuel assistance. I think some people's fantasy is that when a person qualifies for fuel assistance, it means that the program pays their bill for the whole year. But what it does is it qualifies them for a certain dollar amount, and we've had families that qualify for $300 for the entire heating system,
Right,
the
and
whole
that's-
season,
yeah, and that's
from
it.
November to April.
And that's it, and it's
That's not even a
It's
full
not a-
delivery.
well, right, and for some of the homes, they require more because they're not well insulated, and there's some health problems where they have to keep the heat a little bit higher. So that's what we look at when we give extra funding to someone who's used up all their fuel assistance funding. And again, like Pamela says, we are able to reach as much as possible the ones who contact us. It's those hidden people that we're trying to, work on. And I have some volunteers who do come in, and they're able to do a little bit of research on figuring out some people that we already know that we never knew had some financial needs. And then Pamela and I try to get a strategy on how to approach them to let them know they could be included in some of the funding that we have to offer them. So we'll continue to do that. And of course, we're constantly still getting questions on TREAD for next year. So I think that's going to be a program that's going to be utilized even more next year. Right now, the big thing is we lost a key snow plower, a very affordable snow plower, and we're trying to replace that. And I think we found an agency that's in Harvard, but only for that end of Littleton. I'm still looking for this Goldsmith area of Littleton, somebody who's accepting new clients and is as affordable as the prior person that we had. Bob, we may enlist you again with that nice little snow blower that you had, that he puts right in the van and drives over and has helped us in the past. But, that's always a need, and I've talked to the other
It
outreach
works, I tried it
workers.
this morning.
You tried it this morning. I spoke with several of the other outreach workers, and they said that it's an issue for them also, and they've been, just getting contractor names out of Action Unlimited, and we like to know them a little bit better and have them referred by other other residents in the town who highly recommend them. But we have that snow budget, thanks to the Friends, that will pay for some snow removal, but per client, it gets consumed quickly, especially if we have a bad winter. So we will use that for, one of the vendors we have out by the Harvard area for some hand shoveling, so.
Watch out when you tell Tina that you'll do that, though. This was for a friend of mine who was very sick and family couldn't get there, so she said, gee, I need somebody to go over to his house and do it. So I went over and did you're hooked for life after.
So, yeah, he's doing that now. He made it look so easy. I could have never made it look the way he got it out of his van and the way it just plowed through the snow.
Very
It was
quick,
just
yeah.
such a nice little machine he has. It's really, really nice. The veterinary assistance program has really been keeping us busy this month, and that's a good thing. And Middlesex Veterinarian Agency has said they're doing a pet food drive, and they've been very nice to take some custom orders on pet foods that I've known that some clients just can't afford, and their animals are required to be on a special diet. So they've, graciously collected some food that will benefit some of our clients who struggle to try to get the proper food for their animals and pets. We're also trying to work a little bit more closely with the Angel Veterinary Assistance Program and try to have the two programs work together, and that's the one that's out of Neshoba Hospital. So I think that's it, because some of the other programs can probably wait till next month when we meet again, unless anyone has any questions. Yeah.
Oh, no questions.
No questions?
No questions
No.
for Tina?
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Tina.
Okay. Now we'll go back to the budget report, Bob.
Okay, there's nothing in the budget report that's out of whack. It's right there. There is a little bit of money that, and I'm just going to tell you this, but it doesn't mean anything to you. In the Mart report, there's a little bit of money that's there that is not going to be charged to Mart for something that one of the drivers did for 8 or 10 hours, and it was charged out of a different account, but it has to show up in the salary account.
It's town meeting.
But it will just be, I guess it was for the town meeting. And I guess that Pam will just work that out when she puts in her report, because she puts in a separate report to Mart to get reimbursed. That money will not be there, but it's a small amount, and everything seems to be right on line. The regular report is nothing that I didn't see that was not the usual stuff. Unless anybody has any questions?
No, we
That's
trust you.
one of your reports says October, not November. Why?
I know. There's nothing in November for some reason.
She did the wrong month, but November was okay, too.
All right. Any questions about that for anybody? All right, moving on.
Got the funds report of the money that we've collected for the various funds, grants, et cetera.
Oh, yeah, that's in here.
Yeah, I don't get really involved with that, but there is a French report attached which just
Just
tells
smaller
you
sheet.
where funds are, and remember, negatives are positives. On that last column.
Or maybe it's this one.
For instance, we have 19,000 in the emergency assistance balance, and we have 10,000 in the van balance, almost 11,000 in the van balance. Those negatives are positives. It's just the way that it comes out. In other words, the balance means that we're not losing money, we're gaining money. Transportation gift fund is 21,000 right now.
Cool.
Any questions? No. Moving right along then. We are at the director's monthly report. We know what she's been doing. She worked on that report for the selectmen, for BOS.
So this report incorporates October and November, because I didn't give you a written report in October. Showing you the attendance, pretty consistent. We always see things start to ramp up as we move into November and December, and even out for the winter. Transportation, kind of up and down, but still always in that vicinity of 500. And we now have men's and ladies' breakfast back. attendance has been small for those two, and there is some discussion about combining them, because we actually got better attendance when they were combined.
What's
We
that?
did all summer, men's and ladies' breakfast.
Yep.
So stay tuned. We may make some change in that.
Are they
It's a
s-
Friends event, so I can't make a
Well-
decision myself, but I know there's discussion about it.
I meant to actually put that under announcements because I was at the last ladies' breakfast and it was very poorly attended. So I wanted to get a plug in. If anyone's listening now, I'll say it, but it's the third Thursday, isn't it? Am I correct? Third Thursday of the month in the morning, but it might be combined.
I thought it was the second
Is it
Thursday of the
second?
month.
It was, because it
It's
was
the
last
third
Thursday.
Wednesday for the men's.
Second Thursday, because it was last Thursday morning. And.
But it also was the day after the Christmas party, so that may have had some impact on it.
Yes. But don't forget it, and, but do pay attention because it could be combined with the men's.
Can you come in your pajamas?
Yes,
'Cause
you
it's so
can.
early?
They don't care how you look when you get there.
They better be cute pajamas.
Onesies. It's the biggest bargain. It's the biggest bargain in town because you get
Right.
eggs cooked the way you like them, sausage, bacon, toast, home fries, pancakes, juice. They usually have fruit of some sort, coffee or tea
People
for
are putting it in your
$3.
purse to take it home for lunch.
Practically. The Veterans Group was a bigger turnout. That started up again in September, run by the police and the fire department. The police department were away on some sort of thing, so the fire department ran it single-handedly the last time. That one is free for any veteran of any age, males and females.
And
And
do we get them younger?
I actually sat down and talked with a younger veteran.
Excellent.
And this is part of what John Borowski, our veterans agent, is really hoping for, is an opportunity to pull in some of those people that have some need. Obviously, if you come to breakfast at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, you're probably not working. So these are people who may need benefits. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you. Barbara,
Kitchen.
senior diner report.
2 months' worth.
Yes, 2 months' worth. We're going to hold you accountable. You weren't here last month.
The kitchen numbers have been going up, and also the donations have been going up.
Whoa.
So that's a good thing. The Littleton Community Garden people who provided our produce all summer, a couple of them have offered to make soup.
That's the community farm, the Littleton Farm, not the gardeners.
Okay, community farm.
Right.
Okay. They've offered to make soup, and Gail had another offer today, so that word is getting out that people are donating soup for Thursday lunch. Thursday lunch is, growing. It's getting bigger now. Also, does anybody know when we're getting our new faucet?
Oh, no.
The latest word I heard is that they've identified the plumber, they've identified the faucet, and he's really busy.
Gee.
It is so bad. It is so bad.
Yeah, we really need that new faucet
But
in.
that's all. The kitchen is doing fine. Bingo seems to be okay. All calm on the Western Front. About 18 people go, and they have a good time.
No drum beats.
Bingo is about 18 people?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With regard to the diner, are the numbers back to where they were before we had to go to Pine Street? I mean, Pine Tree?
Probably not yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. We're having new people. Yeah.
Our daily numbers are definitely
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
We're still working to get those Thursday numbers up.
Oh, okay.
At one point, we were really going great guns on that special lunch on Thursdays.
Oh, yeah.
But still, we're stars as far as Minuteman Senior Services is concerned. They're very, very happy with our numbers.
So.
All right. May I have a motion to accept the reports?
I make a motion to accept the reports.
Thank you.
Second it.
All right. Get that, Bob?
Got it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do we have any other business to discuss? Before I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you very much, and happy holidays to all of you. I don't see you again. Yes, thank you, and we apologize for not telling you that we were starting a little late.
Don't hold it against us
Glad
when
to
you
have
go
you.
to the Board of
Glad you
Selectmen.
could be here, Joe.
You know how it is